Hi, class. I hope you're well. I would like to welcome you to this freebie on Exodus. For this freebie today, I have decided to take you on a little bit of a tour around Sinai. That is theoretically, of course, or metaphorically speaking. I remember in the course it is indicated that two of the main things happening in Exodus is the Exodus itself from Egypt and then at Sinai. And I know you got one reading on Sinai, but I thought a let me put out this week's freebie by giving you a little bit of a tour of events around Sinai. I've loved Exodus for a really long time. And I hope to do a lot more research on it, and just read it and enjoy it. And as I was reading it in preparation, or as in participation in this course, I was just really excited by it again. So I thought, let me just put out something to give you a bit of a tour of the Sinai narratives, the story, the things that happen around Sinai. So I'll just start here with a basic breakdown of now pretty much the rest of Exodus. All happens at Sinai. In fact, the Israelites only leave Sinai in Numbers 10, 11. 10 chapter 10 verse 11, they only leave Sinai, so they're at Sinai the whole book long. And this is just a bit of a breakdown of what's going to happen. First, you got the arrival in chapter 19. You got the giving of the Decalogue, with the reaction of that. After that, you get the book of covenant, a nice long piece. Then you get the ratification of the covenant and the appearance of the Lord. Then again, a nice long piece of the laws of the laws on the means of worship. Again, a long piece. Then you got a couple of chapters of the unfortunate golden calf incident, and you end the book by the fulfillment of the laws and the means of worship. So let's just get into. Oh, I just also should say that I cannot focus on all of that, but I will give attention to these four main things. And there's going to be a lot of reading in this freebie, me reading from the text, and you can follow along. But I wanted really to take you by the hand and journey with you through the stories, through the text itself, to show you the different things and nuances and emphases. This is a narrative idea. I'm not going to focus too much on interpreting texts, but just to show you the narrative, and to show the events of what happened and how they followed on one another. First of all, arriving at Sinai. Before we arrive at Sinai, we first have to note that Sinai is the mountain on which the Lord also appeared to Moses when he commissioned him. We go back to Exodus chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. We read, "Do not come any closer." This is now after he gets to the burning bush. God said, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the Lord. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Now, at this point, there is the commission. God commissions Moses, says, "I'm going to send you to Egypt. You're going to deliver Israel," but he's a little bit reluctant and scared. So, in verse 12, now this is the indicator. God says, "And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain." So then finally, then there's Exodus. Moses goes, trouble, plagues, everything, and then the grumbling in the early part of the journey. Then in chapter 19, they get to Mount Sinai. Verse 2 at the end, it reads, "And Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God," that's the Mount Sinai, "and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, 'This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself.'" Just look at those beautiful words. Now, this is the God getting ready to make a covenant, yeah, giving entering a relationship with him. Verse 5 again, or from verse 5. "Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. Again, just look at these beautiful words: treasured possession, kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. Really coming to say, want you to be close to me, but you have to keep the covenant. Then he goes down. So Moses went back and summoned the elders and the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. Now you'll see there's multiple levels. This is the first level where God is just saying, "I want you to be my people," and He says to Moses, "Go and tell them this." And then there's gonna be first the Decalogue, then they accept that, and then the longer, and then they accept that as well. Um, so Moses went back down the summit. Okay, so from verse 8, the people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you." Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. Repeated there. So getting ready to come on the mountain, to speak to Moses, to speak in front of the people, to give the 10 commandments, to give more commandments to Moses. But there is, first of all, just a preparation as well, because there needs to be consecration. After this verse, the people consecrate themselves to meet with the Lord. We're going to see that now. So a while later, on the morning of the third day, this is now 3 days of sanctification, or what's the word, consecration. On the third day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of the mountain and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up. Then Moses goes up. There's some exchange. He has to go and fetch Aaron, so he comes down again. But now we're going to get to a passage where we read some of the Decalogue, or the text around the Decalogue. People know the Decalogue, but I want to focus in on some of the text around the Decalogue. So next we will look at the Decalogue. We should really start reading at the end of chapter 19. It says, so Moses went down to the people and told them what they had just discussed, what he had just discussed with Yahweh. Then chapter 1 says, and God spoke all these words: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Then the 10 commandments are given. And in chapter 22 says, then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites this: you have seen for yourself that I have spoken to you from heaven. Now I put these verses here to emphasize two things. First of all, it should be noted is that the 10 commandments the Lord spoke to Israel himself. That's the part of all the laws that they heard God say to themselves, and Moses had to mediate it. But they themselves said it. If you read in Deuteronomy as well, you will see that if you read it carefully. And the other thing I also want to say, which is very important, and we also saw before when God said, "You're going to be, I want you to be my special possession," and then said, "Keep the covenant." That Daniel Block makes the point to say that law is preceded by gospel. This is the gospel. This is the gospel for Israel. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land at slavery. It's not just law, 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 law. Behave yourself. This is the promise. This is what it is built on. From then already, worship is as a reaction to being chosen by God, or holiness. It's not a condition, or it's not trying to achieve it. Sure, you have to keep the law, or they have to keep the law, but it's not an achievement. And again, also God spoke himself. Moving on from there, we can get to the end of the chapter. Again, just the reaction of the people here. When the people saw the thunder and lightning, and heard the trumpet, and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance, and God said to Moses, "Speak to God," and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, and we will listen. Do not have God speak to us, or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning." Then, verse 21, the people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. Moving on from there, we get to the Book of the Covenant, which we're not going to discuss here. It's a couple of chapters where various laws are given: social laws, religious laws, ceremonial laws. Just a couple of chapters, and this passage is called the Book of the Covenant. But we're going to move on to the ratification of the covenant and the glorious appearance of God, because the covenant had to be ratified. Now they have the laws, and they have to accept it. So first, let's read here. When Moses went and told the people all the Lord's words and laws. Now this is the book of the law. They responded with one voice, "Everything the Lord has said, we will do." Moses then wrote down everything the Lord had said. He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Uh, Reading a little further, he took the book of the covenant and read it. Now he had written it down right before. He took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded again. They say, "We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey." Now this is a ceremony for the ratification of the covenant. Moses then took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you, in accordance with all these words." As a celebration, Moses and some of the leaders goes up for a celebration on the mountain. Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. They saw God himself. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of lapis lazuli, as bright blue as the sky. Lapis lazuli is a blue, really beautiful blue stone. But God did not raise a hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God, and they ate and drank. God did not hurt them, because he commissioned them. He called them there, but they should have. It would have made sense. They could have been hurt by his glory, or he could have taken revenge. But he called them up to ratify the covenant. We're going on to verse 12. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and commandments I have written for their instruction." This is now the 10 commandments written by God himself, right? So verse 13, then Moses set out with Joshua his aide. This is important. What is about to happen will lead to some difficulty. Um, Moses set out with Joshua his aide, and Moses went up the mountain of God. He said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we come back to you. Aaron and Hur are with you, and anyone involved in a dispute can go to them." Then Moses went up to the mountain. The cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the glory covered the mountain. And on the seventh day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on the top of the mountain. Then Moses entered the cloud, and he went up to the mountain. And he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Two things to notice: he was gone a very long time, and also Joshua went up with him, or went nearer with him, closer to the mountain. Joshua did not stay with the people. Now, here are another 6 chapters with laws of the means of the worship. So it's pretty much about the priestly garments. I think it's priestly garments as well, but definitely about the tabernacle. So means of worship, how the laws that govern how is ancient Israel worshipped. And it's a little boring, like curtain that long and these sort of clasps and stuff could be quite boring, not really interesting stuff. I encourage you read through it sometime, just to get a bit of a sense of it. But this really beautiful piece is hidden in there. At the beginning of in chapter 25 verse 1, 2 and 8 is really beautifully said. The Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. And then verse 8, then have them make me a sanctuary for me. Have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. This is the glory of God, the very presence of God coming to dwell among Israel, because they're gonna make this tabernacle, it's called, for him. Now we go on to a very sad story, a very sad incident that stretches over a couple of chapters. I encourage you, if you have the time, make the time, in fact, go and read Exodus 32, 33, and 34. It is the incident of the golden calf. I will give you some highlights here. There are some things I wanted to discuss with you, but couldn't because I didn't want to make the video too long. But I encourage you, go and check those 3 chapters out. Just at the start, when the people saw that Moses was long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. Aaron answered, take off the gold earrings from your wives, your sons, your daughters, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. Now, I'll just say something here about this around. Um, that this preposition is an adversative preposition, shows that they sort of went up to him and put pressure on him. I'm not saying he's innocent, but it's relevant that that verse, that they were sort of coming with an idea, and they were saying, you should do this for us. And just you're going to see in the next piece as well, but they didn't think of this as an idol, as another god. They were thinking, yeah, you'll see in the next piece, verse 4, it says, he took what they handed him and made it into the idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then God said, then they said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. Some interesting things to note here. First of all, they said, these are your gods who brought you out of Egypt. It was them that said it. And then also said there that as Aaron declares a festival for Yahweh, because he didn't. I think at this point they actually thought that they were worshiping Yahweh, the Yahweh that fetched them from Egypt. But just then, just a while ago, they agreed to not make any idols. And it's quite comical actually that it says here, they cast the shape of a they into made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. These words is quite comical later when Moses confronts her and he said, "I put the gold in the." They made him put the gold in the fire, and this thing came out by itself, which is not at all how it happened. Then, reading a bit further, then the Lord said to Moses. Now, Moses has been on the mountain receiving all the instructions about the tabernacle and everything. Now, but the Lord tells him, because he knows. Then the Lord said to Moses, go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed it, and have said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. I have seen these people, the Lord said to Moses, and they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, so that my anger may burn against them, and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. And then uh, Moses' reaction. But Moses sought the favor of the Lord and said, Lord, he's God. Lord, he said, why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth. Turn from your fierce anger and relent and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give you, your descendants, all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. So he's appealing to God, reminding God of his promises, reminding God of his good nature. Then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had threatened. Now, at this point, Moses descends the mountain and confronts the people. Then there's some punishment with the Levites and everything I won't get into. Then, verse 30, the next day Moses said to the people, you have committed a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. So Moses went back up to the Lord and said, oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold, but now please forgive their sins. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written. Uh, Moses, in a way, giving God an ultimatum, say, or not an ultimatum, but saying if they're not going to be there, let me out of it as well. But then God said here, Moses is often admired for what he does here, but I don't think that it's the simple truth to say, what he did is good. I think it may have been from a good heart, but we should read the Lord's reply here, because this is just the way the Lord works. As you see in the rest of the Bible as well. The Lord replied to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my anger will, my angel will go before you. However, when the time comes for me to punish, I will punish them with for their sins. So God, in a way, has mercy, but He threatens as well, and He also gives. The Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. Then there's a passage that sort of fits with the golden calf incident, but there's a lot of back and forth and teaching and everything. Moses teaching the people in this whole, these three chapters. But there's one place I should just stop, and it sort of forms part of the golden calf incident. But it's after Moses says to God, "Show me your glory," and he says, "I will proclaim my name to you. I will show you my nature, but you can't see my face." So this is then what the Lord proclaimed. We read from verse 5, 34, verse 5. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with him and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and merciful God, slow to anger, and abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sins of the parents to the third and fourth generation. I'm going to continue reading now, just to say this piece again and again appears. The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, some translations say, and faithfulness. This is a kind of a creed a little bit in Israel and in the rest of the Old Testament. Moving on, Moses bowed to the ground at once and worshipped. Lord, he said, if I have found favor in your eyes, then let the Lord go with us. Although this is a stiff-necked people, forgive our wickedness and our sins, and take us as your inheritance. Then the Lord said, I am making a covenant with you. Again, gracious, he restores the covenant. Before all your people, I will do wonders never before done in any nation in all the world. The people will live among you. The people you live among will see how awesome is the work that I, the Lord, will do. Obey what I command you today. I will drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now, from then on, it goes on to a bit more of just a discussion of things. But this is just I just wanted to bring this to your attention. This God declaring his nature to himself and saying, I'm going to make a covenant with you, but do obey me. Again, he asks, obey what I command you today. The last part of Exodus, again, a nice long passage where they describe now how they actually built the tabernacle they were working on for so long. Is a Yeah, it's a good number of chapters, but I will just end with just a little piece near the end of the book where it says, after they built the tabernacle, after they assembled the tabernacle, Moses set up the courtyard around the tabernacle and altar and put up the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard. And so Moses finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting, because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And this is just really such an amazing moment, and really a high point in the history of Israel, when the Lord um, finally came with his glory and settled in the tabernacle, and where he dwelt among Israel, and where his presence formed the center of their lives in the during the wilderness wanderings, and how they all the whole camp was sort of spread out around the tabernacle, around there where the presence of God is, and there where the sacrifices happened, and where the worship of God happened. And of course, this is just a great sort of comes to fullness in the New Testament, when Jesus, the perfect sacrifice of God, comes and dies in our stead. First of all, dwells as God in our midst, becomes Emmanuel, comes to dwell among us, just like the glory of God, be himself being the image of the invisible God, comes to dwell among us as humans, chooses to become flesh, and dwell among us and die and become our sacrifice, and atone for our sins. And you see in the book of Hebrews again and again, where all these things in the Old Testament, which is really beautiful and which is really great, but again and again, because the Hebrews was written to Jewish believers who, because of persecution, thought about drawing back, who were wondering about the Christian faith, and the writer to the Hebrews reminds them that Jesus is above all, is above angels, is above Moses, is above all the sacrificial system, is above the Levitical priesthood. He is the sort of the just the fullness and the greatness that you see in Hebrews 12, where he says, we are not now at a mountain that can be touched, and fire and all that. In the describes Sinai, again, is glorious. What happened at Sinai was glorious for Israel, but he says that we have not come to that. We've come to Mount Zion. We've come to angels in festal gathering, and that's a great chapter to read as well. Actually, as you looking at Exodus, to see what is it now, what has Christ come to make for us, why he's the guarantor of a greater covenant. Yeah, so that's just great, and I just thought to bring have you a bit of a give you a bit of a tour through the Sinai narratives, and also to show how it really finds its fulfillment in Jesus Christ. I want to thank you for watching this freebie on the book of Exodus. It's been a bit longer, it's been a lot of reading, but I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope you have a nice day. Goodbye.